Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Guy.
I'm Billy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. We're glad you're here. Subscribe to this channel. Like the video.
Yep. Check out the little thing we got going. It's called a podcast. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's down there below in the bottom. If you haven't, I need you to subscribe, share it with your friends, and if you have some enemies, forward it to them as well.
Today, we are going through Deebo Samuel trade proposals. It is Thursday, April 21st as we record this. We're not big on the date. Usually, we don't keep track of that kind of thing. But it's significant because maybe are we 1 week away from Deebo Samuel getting traded or Jimmy Garoppolo getting traded? Or I actually have another crazy trade proposal for you that's not Deebo or Jimmy related that I don't think is out of the question, that it would rock the NFL world, John. That coming up on CNN Plus.
Wait, Kyle. No, I don't think anything is. Kyle for 4 ones.
Kyle for 4 ones. Before we go any further,
multiple ones and $1 million. Remember, Gruden was traded 20 years ago, so pre-coach inflation for a lot.
It's true.
I mean, if whatever Gruden went for, like Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay would go for more, right?
It's true.
Because no one would want the cash. Like I was like, I want $7 million. Like people just want more picks. Like no one would be like, and direct deposit $12 million. You'd just be like, yeah, I want 3 1s and 2 2s for Andy Reid, right? Or whatever. I was like, I need $8 million. They're like, okay,
fine. We are brought to you in part by our friends at buckmason.com/ham. Before we start jumping into trades, let's tell you about it. Buckmason.com/ham. Right now, you get a free tee with any order, and the tees are fantastic. Fantastic quality. Buckmason.com/ham.
Buckmason.com/ham. I'm wearing the hoodie right now. Guy has on a little, almost called you Kyle, has on a little jacket. I have that same jacket as well. It's a good looking jacket.
I actually rolled the sleeves up.
You know what I would wear, the way I would wear that jacket? We don't live in a place that's quite cold enough to do this move, but you know a lot of people in like the Northeast, how they do the sweatshirt and then the jacket over the sweatshirt. It'd be that would be my move. I would go sweatshirt, jacket over the sweatshirt, and then I'd go to like sit courtside at a game. Like that's the look.
I like it. I got a little hack for you, John. Because what we recommend with these, a lot of people have got them and love them. The Pima tee I love. We do say size up a little bit. Here's a little hack for you. It's called the Trail Traversed Curved Hem tee. That's what I'm wearing right now. It's a different material. It's supposed to be like a wicking material, but it's not like a dry fit look. So it doesn't, you can just wear it casually. It doesn't look like you're wearing a gym shirt. It's a little more expensive than the other tees, but you can make it your free tee.
Genius. Outthink the room, guy. That's what they teach you at Fresno State. There
you go. All right.
Haberman, so we're Ryan Matthews, Devontae Adams.
Did you say Derek Carr?
I did not include Derek. I just included the 2 best, Ryan Matthews at Fresno State. Derek was great too. Athletes. Paul George. I'd throw Derek in there as well. Tommy Mendonza.
You goddamn right, Tommy Mendonza. College World Series champion, Tommy Mendonza.
It wasn't the left-handed pitcher that you knew his family.
Justin Wilson.
Still pitching? Isn't he still around? Or is he
Justin Wilson, man, going strong. That's right. His parents always gave me great fireworks.
Yeah. Don't sleep on the dogs.
Don't sleep on the dogs. All right. So let's dive into some Deebo stuff. We want your trade proposals as well. So hit us in the comments with trade proposals. There's a lot going on right now with Deebo. He deletes and shoots down rumors. The latest was, the people in the media I don't even remember what his line was. The deleted post about something Schefter wrote. And, these people don't know.
How he called Schefter Maine. I like that word, Maine. What's this Maine doing?
I like how Le'Veon did a whole thing about Deebo and spelled his name wrong the whole time. But
like saying how great of a player he was.
Just like Deebo, if you hold out the whole year, what they're going to do is they're going to try and make your backup look as good as you, so you don't look as good. It's like,
swear to God?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So Le'Veon had one of those personal explosions speaking through Deebo. I didn't know that.
Projecting.
I would have loved that. Yeah, they're going to find his actual name's going to be James Conner. He's going to beat cancer. He's going to start at running back when you're out, and then he's going to become a stud player, and then they're just going to throw you away the following year, and you're going to lose $14 million. Actually, Deebo, that won't happen to you, but that did happen to me. When every human, from MIDDLEKAUFF to every GM, told you, hey, Le'Veon, probably not a great idea to sit this year out, play for $14 million, and you'll have accumulated $27 million in back-to-back seasons. That's what you should do.
If Deebo doesn't play this year, one thing the Niners are going to do is make sure to feed someone else the ball and make it seem as if they don't need Deebo. When in reality, we all know the truth. But if Deebo doesn't play, they'll try to make it seem like the backup is just as good.
You know what's so stupid?
Like, we'll watch 17 games, and then we'll know if Deebo's replaceable or not. It's very simple.
Well, also, Le'Veon, the Steelers wanted you to play. I mean, they were offering you the franchise tag to be their starting running back. They handed it to James Conner. Again, a dude that beat cancer. Pretty sure he's like a fifth. He might have been an undrafted free agent. I don't even remember. But they had to because you were not there. They would rather have handed you the ball. Le'Veon's got some demons on that holdout, huh?
Wouldn't you?
Yeah, it cost him a lot of money.
All right. So, so on that point, before we dive into some trades, like Deebo, I'm not saying Deebo should go on First Take or whatever, and, or Haberman and Middlecoff or shows of that ilk, as Michael Wilbon once said, and start making all kinds of demands. But, this is how it works. Like, if you want to control the narrative, that's why the Players Tribune was invented. Then you say what you want to say. Otherwise, people say it for you, and it might be wrong.
But he has not denied requesting a trade, right?
No, but everyone's trying to figure out why. And if he doesn't say why, then other people will all make their guesses as why, right?
Yeah, because part of it, and it goes back to the Rodgers things last year. It's like, well, describe why you're so mad. And remember, we kept saying, like, I bet if he described it would, because it is difficult. And I'm not comparing Rodgers to Deebo situation, but when you don't like someone internally at a job, the people that like truly can understand it, all the people you work with, they're like, yeah, this guy's a kook, this guy's a whack job, but it's hard to describe to other people outside of your little work cocoon. Football would probably be a little bit easier, right? If you're playing for Adam Gase and you're like, this guy's, if you just went out and said, like, I don't want to play for Adam Gase anymore, this sucks, get me out of here. We've seen that done in pro sports before. Guys that are on shitty ass teams just kind of do that. Deebo doesn't have that in his back pocket. Rodgers didn't have that in his back pocket. And I've been saying, like, I'm born and raised in Northern California. If I was about to make $50 million, the last place in the world I'd want to get paid that $50 million would be Santa Clara. So I understand. I think if he came out, and who knows, he's kind of denying this, and simply said, I hate living here, and I do not want to pay taxes on what could be my only big contract in my life, I think he'd get a lot of support. He's like, listen, I love Kyle. I love being a 49er. I don't want to get taxed and play here. But he is never going to do that. No player would, because the PR, the media would turn on you. Because most of the media, coastal elites,
well, I think a transparent comment that doesn't crush anybody, I think it's hard to really nitpick, right? Like, I think it's pretty simple. If you came out and said, like, it's going to cost me $18 million to live here instead of there, and my kid's in Florida and I'd rather be there, I think people, how can you, I don't really even get mad at that, right?
Well, why does no one ever say that?
Because they're agent, it doesn't sound good to, like, your blue collar fan, people like us. I think it just doesn't sound good when rich people complain about money, right? So, and it doesn't, part of it too is, like, you don't want to say what you don't have to say. It's just, you don't also get to be mad when you don't say it and other people come up with their own theories, right?
I agree.
And I would also say to the Niners, like, if that's what it is, to me, if he said that to the 49ers, I could understand. Then it's not unreasonable to say, you got to overpay me a little. I want to be here, but you've got to overpay me to be here because of what it costs me to be here, right? And then Jed York goes to the league meetings and says, guys, we need different salary caps for different states.
And then Roger would say, Jed, no one gives a shit what you think. Back to you, Jerry.
And then Spanos would be like, no, let's keep them all the same, all low.
The problem would be, too, if Deebo were to say that, and then Bosa were to, like, re-story the tweet or something, like, oh shit. This is a problem. Now, luckily, Joey, accepted a large amount of money in Southern California. Now, I would say this
and Nick's about to accept more.
As a Southern California hater that went to Hollywood a couple times in the fall, like, I get it. Like, it's just nicer down there than up here. It's not even debatable. Like, it's just sunnier. You got the water. It's just nicer.
And, like, you said this yesterday too. Like, there's Santa Clara and the Bay Area, while one is part of the other, is not exactly living across from Levi Stadium, right? Is not the same as living in Alamo or
I'd even say San Jose. Like, I think that place is a dump, man. I mean, I really do. I
now
think
you can
Palo
go just a
Alto,
little up. Alex Smith just built a massive house in, I don't know, whatever that Woodside or
yeah,
whatever that area is called.
the Palo Alto little stretch is incredible, but it's not that large, right? And the prices are, I think it's the most expensive spot in the Bay Area, which is the most expensive place to live in America, right? So Deebo's like, yeah, I could have a sweet palace that would cost me $17 million. That if I traded to Houston, that same house costs me $3 million while I'm still making more. But you're right. I think there's a difference.
And look, I know that he said it's not about this, it's not about that. I do think. Let me say this or go ahead if you want to finish that point. I was going to jump to something else.
I think there's a difference, like in just saying, listen, this is going to cost me a lot of money. And like, remember Phil Mickelson a long time ago said how much money he was complaining about California taxes. And people are like, Phil, you can live wherever you want. Part of it is like, Deebo, I didn't choose here. I loved playing for Kyle, but this contract after my financial advisor, because if you were about to accumulate that type money, I'm sure you would just sit down. I would with an accountant. I mean, we all just went through tax. You run different things off your accountant. You ask them, like, what would it be if I lived here? You can just see, for us that live in California, I paid whatever, 10,000, 50,000, whatever your state income tax. And you just tell yourself, well, if I lived in one of the Vegases, the Texases, the Floridas, I would have all that money. So I can't imagine at numbers that exceed 99.9%, you start doing huge numbers, you go, Jesus, especially if you're not from here. I that area's got to be a little weird. I mean, you couldn't pay me to live down there.
So,
and you might not be able to do Deebo either.
Well, we'll see, right? Because Devontae Adams could afford, he had been paid over $60 million by the time he said, I don't want to live here anymore. And presumably he told the Packers, I don't want to live here anymore. Deebo's made just over $6 million in his career. Okay. So Devontae's made 10 times more than Deebo coming into the contract where he just got paid. Which means that if you're the 49ers, you have a little more leverage with Deebo than you do Devontae. Devontae had more money behind him that if he wanted to just take hits in OTA or in camp and not show up for week one, I don't think it was going to get there. But he could. It was a little more believable with him. Deebo has less. And so it gives, I think, the 49ers more power. If I were Kyle Shanahan, I'd hop on a plane and go fly to Deebo. And go, Deebo.
But you're assuming you're dead set on him wanting to keep him forever, right? Or at least,
yeah. But to me, when we investigate all options, part of that is Deebo. I'm going to be at the Four Seasons wherever you can. I'm going to be there for 3 days. Here's my room number.
Go. I love.
But let's talk, man. I just want to know where you're coming from, and maybe they do know from his words exactly where he's coming from. But my point is, I think there's a lot of problems that money can't solve. There's also a lot of problems that money can, and the 49ers from 21 or 18 million, whatever the first offer was, average annual, can get to 26. And let's find a way to make this work for you, Deebo. Now, if Deebo doesn't want to play wide back or suddenly hates Kyle Shanahan or what, okay, these are all individual problems. But
I actually think they even have more leverage than the way you explained it with the number, because $6 million on paper. Well, California taxes was agent fees. Absolutely. If he's, that sweet big chain he makes. I mean, I'm not a chain.
Maybe it was a gift.
Any jewelry. If it's not a gift, what would you guesstimate that thing ran? Minimum 150.
How am I supposed to? 200? I don't know.
Yeah, but six figures.
That's not my world, John.
No, not my world either. But that thing wasn't cheap.
No. Okay, so a lot of people in the comments are telling us some of what Deebo has said or some of what he hasn't. The first question you have to figure out for the 49ers is can we heal this and bring him back to our team? And does money heal it? And do we want him back? Or now that the door is suddenly open to offers, which was kind of the point of yesterday, right? Now you're starting to hear a little bit, if you're the Niners, what teams might be willing to give you. Jason Brett bought the chain. Well, it cost him nothing. So now offers are coming in.
By Deebo chain. I don't know.
That's a hell of a gift.
I thought of a realistic offer. Can I start, or you want to let people start?
You start.
one of the things that came out about the Jets was they were unwilling to give the 10th pick for Tyreek. And let's just say the 10 is a non-starter. If he draws a line in the sand where you get like the Devontae Adams Packers, where you know he's not coming back, would you entertain 35-38 in next year's Jets 1, which let's just say that they could easily suck again. So that 1 could be a top 15 pick in a much better draft. And gives you 2 pretty sweet picks in this year's draft, not necessarily on Deebo's level by any means, but second round picks, as Deebo is, as AJ Brown is, as a lot of sweet players are the best value truly in sports because of legitimately how little money. I mean, Deebo Samuel's made $6 million, even when he was struggling, like 2020, like that's still a good value, right?
Yeah. Yep. So I would entertain that, right? If we're in
35, 38, and next year.
And the 1. And the 1 is the reason I would entertain it, right? The 1's the reason you entertain it. Now, you know, if you're the Niners, the one thing that you say that works against Deebo in contract negotiations is something that you hold against other teams in trade offers, which is age and productivity, right? Tyreek has a longer track record. So it gives him more leverage in contract negotiations. But Deebo's younger, which makes him, in theory, a more attractive trade piece, right? Like you couldn't offer me what the Jets offered Tyreek or offered to the Chiefs for Tyreek, and I would not take that if I were the 49ers, 2 2s and a third. The difference was, the Chiefs weren't re-signing Tyreek, right?
Well, they did get a 1. They got the 29th pick, right?
No, yeah, from Miami. I'm saying what the Jets offered was 2 2s and a 3 to Kansas City.
Yeah.
Kansas City was in a little bit of a different boat. They were not going to re-sign Tyreek at top of the market dollars, right? It's been reported. Mayoka, we talked about it yesterday. Niners are willing to go to 24 million, or they've budgeted that much money. So that, to me, that means they'd go to 25. So, like, I wouldn't take that. And we did the math yesterday on the draft value chart. That number adds up to whatever the number was, like
it was like 360 versus 390 or whatever.
Yeah, it's close to the 10th pick, but I'm sorry. I'm not doing that for my best.
I would say part of it with Devontae, Tyreek, and definitely Deebo, there is a PR element to it. Like the Chiefs could not have traded Tyreek Hill without a top 32 pick. Whether that's ultimately was a 29, and I bet Veach and Andy would be like, yeah, relative to the offer, it's probably not even that much different. But we can just say we got a first round pick. Right?
I think when you get to the PR game that you're talking about, I think having
the PR game, and you think it's overrated. I'm not saying you're about to say this, but I do think with the star players, having a 1 associated is a must, right?
I wasn't going to disagree with that at all.
I'm not saying you. I didn't think you.
No. all I want to say is I think it's different when you've won a championship. The Chiefs won a championship with that group, so everyone can take it when you break it up. Versus when you haven't won the title, you don't have quite as much. You just said, all right, this guy that was one of our key title pieces is gone. Whereas the Chiefs won a title, then have failed to win titles, and okay, let's try and open a new window.
And don't you think if you're a Chiefs fan, you're like, well, now we got 2 1s, 2 2s, and 2 4s, right?
Yeah.
Let Andy and Veach cook.
And here's the problem with the Jets, though. If it's about money, the tax rate in New York is almost as high as the tax rate in California. Oh, well, they play in Jersey. Well, that one's almost as high as New York's. 10.9 in New York and 10.75 in Jersey. Looked it up this morning. Research.
Well, the Raiders aren't an option. The only team in Texas, I guess the Cowboys technically could be an option. Would you trade them to Dallas? To me, no, you would not.
Tennessee.
And Tampa would not be an option because they don't have the money.
And Miami?
They don't have any picks.
Yeah. So that makes Houston an option. So let's talk about Houston for a second. Houston has the 3rd pick, the 13th pick, and the 37th pick. And Houston has 2/3, 68 and 80. And Houston has the 2nd and the 3rd pick of the 4th round. So Houston, to me, is fits the profile of a team that can afford to overpay a little bit because they have so much, right? You wouldn't get 3 from them, but could you get 13 and 37?
And they have a crazy amount coming through the Watson trade, right?
And they've got a lot coming. Would you take 13? So 13 and 37 would be the ideal. Would you take 13 and like 80 and then 80, which is a second rounder, or 13 and 68, which is a second rounder or a third,
third rounder,
early third, or yeah, it wouldn't be a comp.
32, 32, 64, no comps in the second. So yeah.
So would you take 13 and 68 and then an early fourth? You would have to have 13.
So
yeah,
to me, the question is
would the Texans offer 37?
So is 37 and 13 better than 35, 38 in next year's one? Because I do think you could probably convince the Jets to, like, you still get to keep 10 and 4, you get 2 sweet players, and you get Deebo. So your first 3 picks are 4th pick in the draft, 10th pick in the draft, and then Deebo Samuel.
Right.
And then next year's one, you're trying to compete right now. You have this nucleus of sweet young guys. In theory, you drafted them all, right? The question is 13 and 37 just in a vacuum better than that offer? Because you can go, well, you can use that 13th pick right now to get someone.
So 13 is this is the updated. This is not the Jimmy Johnson. 13 is 336, and 37 is 157. So that's 493, which is basically the equivalent of the 4th pick. So that's worth more than the
13.
Is that what you asked? 10 and 30. Is that what you asked for? 13 and 37?
Yeah.
So that's Houston. It's 493.
It's worth a lot.
It's worth basically the 4th overall pick.
But where you could really, part of the unknown with next year's one, what if the Jets win 5 games? And then that pick is 8th. So you got 35-30 in a draft that I just think people think that next year's going to be better, right? It's got some star quarterbacks, Will Anderson. You know they're going to be sweet wide receivers now every year. They're going to be some sweet dudes, right? They're just it feels like this year is a down year at the top. So would you bet on the future? Because I do think
and against the Jets.
Because I think there's a decent chance that the Jets and the Texans just 13 and 10 aren't even available, right? So if I'm going to look at next year's one, I would say both next year's ones would be pretty good. But what the Jets, I would be like, listen, you really need this guy, and you have 2 top 10 picks. I need 38, 35 in next year's one. Because again, I don't have to. That's where the Niners have the leverage. I don't have to do anything. Like ultimately, the Chiefs and the Packers were cool with doing it. Like I don't think the Niners are just cool with trading him. They'll sit it out because they know he'll come back because he doesn't have the money.
Right, which is what I would bet. Okay, here's Teddy. Thank you, Teddy. What about 35, 38, and Quinnen Williams? So this is a Jets proposal.
Quinnen Williams now is like several years into his career. He's going to need a new contract relatively soon. You have Kinlaw, who, again, I make fun of a lot for the videos, but if they're seeing him, they're like, well, he's going to be fully healthy now. I'm going to get 2 years of him under a first-round contract, right? It's not like Kinlaw doesn't get to bitch and moan after if he has a good season, like to get paid, right? The Niners wouldn't even do that. So you have him under a cost control contract for several years. I would say no. Quinnen Williams is now a couple years, like he's coming on where he has to be reimbursed if he's a solid player, right?
Yeah, he's 4 years
wrong.
3 years in the league, coming into his 4th year.
So he has a good 4th year. What do you think he's going to want? Or even if he does the 5th year option, like it's expensive. You have to pick up his 5th year option this offseason.
Nick says Waddle and a 3rd for Deebo. Deebo would be happy to play with McDaniel. Well, yeah. I agree with that is what I'm saying. And we get a receiver that isn't an unknown as opposed to, I see what you're saying, as opposed to a draft pick.
I'd think long and hard about that.
So that would be
so I get Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle is valuable, right? Because he's under contract and he's relatively cheap if he just stays as a productive player. So he's got value.
The problem is Miami's 3rd is a comp 3rd that the Niners sent them.
What about Deebo for Waddle straight
pick.
up? Deebo for Waddle straight up, and your next year's one.
That I would like. A Kyle betting against Mike McDaniel. I like that more because Miami doesn't have.
They traded away for Tyreek a shitload, right?
Yeah, Miami's first pick is number 102, which they got from the Niners.
It doesn't mean anything to me.
That come from Kansas City? Where'd that come from?
Who?
102, when it goes from the Niners to Miami.
Is that part of Trey Lance trade?
Oh, yeah. A comp third? Was that part of the Trey Lance trade? Maybe it was.
Yeah. I think a third was included in the Trey Lance trade.
Yeah.
It was the flip-flop ones, 2 ones, and a third. Like the Niners, Trey Lance was an expensive acquisition. I don't think we quite talk enough about, like, the Niners paid a lot for that guy. Like, a lot, right? It wasn't just like, hey, like the Chiefs got Mahomes. We traded up and we gave him next year's one. It's like a pretty simple, just big transaction. The Niners were like, yeah, we'll give you another one. You notice how many times that Trey Lance, the different picks have been kind of moved around different places? It's a lot of like second hands getting their hands on that crap.
Here's another one for you, John. Okay. Your old boss, Howie Roseman. The Eagles have number 15. They have number 18. They have number 51 in the second. They have 83 and 101 in the third. Okay. So they have 2 1s, a 2, and 2 3s.
And the Saints won next year, right?
And the Saints won next year.
And the Saints 2 the following year. So they got a lot of ammo.
So what would it take? What would you need from Philly to consider Deebo? 15, start there.
I think Philly would be very interested in the player. I don't know if Howie at this point in time would want to just pay a guy all that money. Now, you could argue he kind of fits in what they want to do, him and Jalen. Would you take 15 or 18 and the Saints next year's one?
Yes. Would I take if I'm trading Deebo, I would consider that trade. Yeah. I'm coming into this with, by the way, my stance is I would, after I fly to wherever, Miami or wherever, South Carolina, fly to Deebo right now and talk to him face to face. My goal first and foremost is to play chicken with him and wait it out and think that I can get him in. But that said, to answer your question, yes, I would consider this year's Philly one and next year's New Orleans one.
I don't know if Howie would do that. If his quarterback was Justin Herbert or something, I just don't know. What would his
offer be? Start there.
Probably like 15 and next year's 2 or something.
Here's the thing. I heard somebody say that they don't think the Jets are a good fit. And I think the Jets are a good fit for the same reason I think Philadelphia is a good fit. For the same reason the Niners are a good fit for Deebo. I think Deebo makes a lot of sense for a team that doesn't have elite quarterback play. Now, Deebo's just a really good player. He makes sense for everybody. But I think he makes sense for Zach Wilson. Because Zach Wilson, accuracy is not really his greatest strength right now. And he's a young quarterback that needs some pressure taken off of him. Well, Deebo can do that. And I would say the same thing for, I think, Tua. Like, I think Tyreek is great for Tua, even though we talk so much about
have Tyreek 2 Deebos, though.
Who?
I mean, they have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, though. Because I see a lot of people talking about Miami Mike McDaniel. Like, Tua had...
No. What I'm saying is not... I'm saying Tyreek is a great match for Tua. Everyone talks about Tyreek down the field. To me, he's a great match for Tua because you don't have to throw the ball down the field to him. And it's the same reason that he was a good fit for Zach Wilson, because you can just give him the ball with an easy throw. It's the same reason that Deebo's a fit for the Jets. It's the same reason Deebo's a fit with Jimmy. It's the same reason Deebo's a fit with Trey. We don't have to ask you a lot to get him the ball and then let him make plays. I'm just saying Deebo and Tyreek are fits with Tua, just like they're both fits with because I saw like someone said, like, well, the Jets wanted Tyreek because he's a take the top off guy, and that's not Deebo. No, he's an easy, even though he's not big, he's an easy guy to get the ball to. And that's why I think Deebo makes sense for the Eagles also, because you don't have to ask your quarterback to do a lot to get him the ball. I think it's a little, in a weird way, like getting the ball to DK is a little tougher, even though DK is a huge target and gets himself open. I would take all these guys. But a guy who I can give the ball to at the line of scrimmage and he can go make plays, like,
no, I hear you.
My less great quarterback is really good. That's my point there. And that's why I think Carolina also would have to try and make an offer. Now, Carolina's problem is they just got the 1 pick, and it's the 6th pick. So if Carolina offered 6 for Deebo, would you take that?
Yeah, probably. But it's like, what I would rather do is, like, could I get a player, your 2nd round pick, and next year's one, and also give you Jimmy?
Brian Burns.
Yeah, something like that.
You wouldn't want McCaffrey, would you?
Could I package Jimmy along with Deebo? I would contemplate doing McCaffrey. It'd be risky, but I do think that'd be the type. Like you'd be like Christian would be pretty good with Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, so Christian makes $19 million next year. That's his cap hit. And I know I think I read you can get out of his contract this year, but his dead cap next year is like 18. So
I think the risk with McCaffrey is like now Deebo's been hurt too. I've seen Deebo be a complete war daddy when it's mattered most. And I'm not saying I think McCaffrey is a war daddy at his core, but I haven't seen it. And there's a risk there. Now if it involves and their second round pick's pretty high, right? Do they have their second round pick?
No.
Oh yeah, because they traded for Sam Darnold.
They don't have a third either.
Well, that's how the Jets have 35 and 38. They have the Panthers. The Jets have a shitload. Guy, the Jets have 4, 10, 35, and 38. Like that's a boatload.
Yeah. And 69.
I think the Jets make the most sense.
The Panthers have 6 standpoint. And 137.
Yeah,
so their next pick is 137. Unless they trade back, which also would make sense for them, right? But someone has to. The Carolina's kind of going to be in the situation the Raiders were in a few years ago, in the Cleveland Farrell year. It's like, is anyone trading up to 6 this year?
Would you do McCaffrey in next year's 1?
See, I think Christian McCaffrey's primed for a good year, but I just think part of the reason you might be open-minded to trading Deebo is you believe that he has had his best year of his career, right? Just because of a combination of injuries, whatever. You think it's possible he's peaked. And I think you can make the same case for Christian, that he has had the best year he's going to have, and he's owed a lot of money still.
Got to give Joe Douglas.
I would not love that trade offer.
I know they haven't won, and their team's been a pretty big embarrassment, but Joe Douglas traded 2 people, Jamal Adams and Sam Darnold, and ended up his second-round pick is 38, and his first-round pick is 10. That's pretty good, guy. That's
really
good.
38 for Sam Darnold is that's an all-time swindle.
How about just in itself? I know he got 2 1s and 2, but just 10 for Jamal Adams.
Yeah, I mean that one might even be better. Actually,
Jesus, I don't know if Joe has a good coach or a good quarterback. I mean, I like Robert, so I don't know if he's a good head coach, but he's pretty good at wheeling and dealing. I mean, he's made some moves. Now you just got to pick the players.
I got a couple more for you, but let's go into the comments for one here. Panthers trade. This is actually perfect timing. DJ Moore and a first rounder and number 6 for Deebo and 61. I guess my question would be why is Carolina trading DJ Moore?
They just extended him, so whenever you do that, it's hard to trade him. I don't think that's possible. But I
appreciate the thought just because it's hard to get a Carolina trade working.
I would do that. I asked a buddy any Deebo comps, and Deebo's better than this guy, but he thought DJ Moore is kind of a similar player. Body type, kind of stout, fast. DJ Moore's good.
Younger.
I would do that, yes.
So we got another Jets. Okay.
Want me to hit you up with Teddy's question really quick?
Yeah. Hit me up with Teddy's. Thank you, Teddy.
Good man, Teddy. Doesn't Deebo only have 1,000 yard season? Doesn't it hurt his trade value? I get he's younger, but won't GMs balk at a big trade package because they know he's just a 1-year wonder? Good question, Teddy.
So I actually think the first part of that is interesting because, yes, his 1,000-yard receiving year is this year, and it was 1,400 yards. And he led the league in yards per reception. Like Deebo, without 59 carries this year, and he had more rushing touchdowns than receiving touchdowns, right? He had 8 rushing touchdowns and 6 receiving touchdowns. Let's take away all his rushes and give him like 2 or 3 more receiving touchdowns. So let's say he has 8 or 9 receiving touchdowns. Still a hell of a play. Like Deebo, without being the running back he became, if he's healthy, is a hell of a receiver. The other Deebo thing is, I think you have to bring this up if you talk about injuries. It was college. You got hurt in college too.
But part of this is, and this is like, I threw this out on Twitter. I said, if I was the Niners, what I would ask for. Part of it is the Niners are allowed to ask for a lot. They're not just like, we're getting rid of this guy. I mean, all the reports have been they have zero intention of getting rid of him. So if you're going to ask, like, hey, I got a $2 million home, I don't want to move. If you're willing to offer 4, you can have it, but I'm not giving it to you for 2.4. I don't need the extra 400 grand. So yeah, like just, hey, the Jets, I'll give you 2 2s and next year's 2. Well, yeah, in theory, that's probably a decent deal, but I would rather have my player. So if you want to fucking blow me away, you could argue the Niners would be like, I need those 2 2s. I need next year's 1 and a 3rd. Because again, I don't want to give up the player. You're the one that wants this player. Now you can be like, well, he doesn't want to be there. Wait, I don't care. He's under contract. You know, he's not a free agent. So I think part of it is I understand some of these deals because I saw a lot, like even on social media, like that is crazy to offer that much. Well, yeah, the 49ers don't want to trade the guy. It's like, what would Myles Garrett be worth? Well, he's worth way more to me because he's the best player in franchise history since like Jim Brown. So yeah, if someone wants him, it takes 4 1s and 2 2s. You'd be like, that's insane. No one's going to trade that. Well, no shit. I don't want to give him. But if you want Myles Garrett, it would cost 4 1s and 2. What would Justin Herbert cost? Unlimited ones. Well, no, yeah, that's what it would cost. I don't want to give him away.
If you're the Chargers, I don't think there's such a thing as a trade package that doesn't involve a top 5 quarterback.
It's not even fair to do the quarterback.
Like you wouldn't take, if they let you take 12 ones, you wouldn't do it for Justin Herbert.
No, to me, you can't even use quarterbacks, but you could just use like, if I got John Robinson on the phone, like, what's AJ Brown worth to you? He'd be like 2 1s, 2 2s, and 3 more players. I love AJ Brown. He's like the best player on our team, right? So it's like, I don't want to get rid of him, but I'd ask for 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s. And honestly, I have to see the value of the picks this year for me to like, is that even worth it for me to entertain? Like, well, he's not worth that. Well, yeah, I don't want to give him away, right? Like, what's Micah Parsons works to the Cowboys? Well, he's going into his 2nd year of a rookie contract. He's clearly an unstoppable force. I bet Jared would be like 3 1s. Like, no one's trading 3 1s for him. Well, yeah, no shit. I'm not giving him away. Not everyone gives free, ground beef for life.
Oh, good transition. Sorry, I killed your transition right there. We'll get to that in a second.
You pull up question, though.
This is Niner by Nature 88. Woo! Thank you. Great show. How will Trey Lance fare without Deebo? Thank you for the great content.
Cheeseburgers on this guy. Well, not cheeseburger around us because they're all like $21, but appreciate it.
How will Trey Lance fare without Deebo?
I mean, I think that's a great unknown. To me, that's the reason that even if you could get like 35, 38, and 1, you're like, let's just roll with Deebo. I'm telling you, I have no issue if it comes out like the draft ends and be like, you saw all these Niners, like turns out the Jets offered this and this team offered that, and the Niners said no to them all. I don't think that's crazy. Even you're like, damn, they turned down that.
Well, you said this a long time ago, and we've talked about it, but the pick becomes a person. The pick, I wouldn't give him 13. Well, the second 13 is Garrett Wilson. It's like you wouldn't trade Garrett Wilson for Deebo Samuel. Like just say it that way, and it sounds very different, right?
Or like, you do that 35, 38. Eventually, they become 2 guys. It's like, well, this corner and wide receiver better be good. And then all of a sudden in training camp, you're like, well, he's behind this guy, and a little slower. You're like, oh shit.
Go look up who the Jags drafted with the 2 1s they got for Jalen Ramsey. It's Travis Etienne and some other guy who I can't think of his name, and I think it's a name I can't really pronounce. So
I think it's a pass rusher from LSU.
It is a pass rusher whose name I can't really picture. But
so you're right; those guys become players, and
they become players.
And I would say historically, right, when these big trades happen, you go back, look at you're like, it's not often like we traded this guy for 3 picks, and it turned out to be Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, and our starting guard, right? Wins for everybody. It's usually like, no, we traded Khalil Mack, and we ended up with this guy who sucks and Josh Jacobs. Like, it's not bad. I think when people, that's why it sounds so sweet, like 35, 38, and a 1 for Deebo. You're like, in the second round, we get a guy like Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, and then get like this next Richard Sherman. Because it's always the comps. And I say this all the easiest comp, like who is this guy like? Deebo Samuel. Who's this guy like? Draymond Green. You never do like, who's this guy like?
Well, those
Daniel
are the 2.
Brunskill.
Those are the 2 that players say too. The players love saying it, right? NBA guys for 8 years have been like, yeah, I'm kind of like Draymond. Like, are you? Are you like Draymond? Well, because Draymond, you could argue, I have a buddy who played with Steve Kerr at Arizona, and they're pretty tight. He watches all the Warriors games. and he texted me the other night with like 8 exclamation points. Draymond Green is the greatest role player in the history of the league, which sounds almost like a dig, but it's not, because it's pretty common that a jack of all trades is a master of none. Draymond has managed to be a master of several things. And, most guys aren't. Like saying a draft prospect who says I'm Draymond Green is like, yeah, I'm not great at anything. Well, Draymond's great at some stuff, right?
Yeah.
And same as when Kobe died, everybody, it was driving me nuts, but you can't say it. Rest in peace. Everyone had Mamba mentality out of respect, but like, yeah, if Kobe was here, he'd laugh at 99% of you that claim to have Mamba mentality. That's the point. It's a 1%er thing.
I totally agree. To me, it's Draymond or Dennis Rodman. Like those guys are clearly just the two.
And even Dennis couldn't be your point guard.
Yeah, it's Dennis was probably like back then the league was a little different. You had to bang a little bit more. Not that you don't bang now, but I don't disagree with that guy at all. Obviously, that guy knows more basketball than me, but I just do think it's very, very Malik Willis. Like, he's kind of like this big project like Josh Allen, huge. Like, he's not going to be Josh Allen, but no one ever be like, he might end up like Hackenberg meets Mariota. Like you can't, you're like, 6th round, right? I mean, you can't say that. It's like Garrett Wilson. Everyone keeps, he's like, he reminds me a lot of Justin Jefferson. And listen, it's different. A lot of wide receivers have just transitioned, so that's probably bad. Like Stingley, like he could be like, Patrick Peterson in his prime with a little bit of Revis. Like probably not. I mean, he'll probably just be an underachieving corner. Like let's call a spade a spade. Like there's been Revis and Dion, like the 2 sweet corners the last like 30 years, and Richard for a little bit, but Richard was pretty. That's just I think we got to be very, very careful with replay. Like Deebo is Deebo. Like Draymond is like, why don't the Warriors try it up? Because they have Draymond Green with their guys.
Part of Deebo is that he is an elite running back. But he's not a running back. He's a fantastic receiver. If he never takes another carry, he's a fantastic receiver, right? Like first and foremost.
Yeah. He's a fantastic football player. And ultimately, I would say it's the one sport where you kind of can do it. Because ultimately, if I can just throw him quick screens till the cows come home. And they do that a lot. And he just dominates, right?
And go.
I can do pitch plays to him. Like I don't have to just do the running back thing, but I can keep that in my back pocket. It does feel like, I wonder if the first time he's really had to think about it was when the money started coming up. It's like, you got to be very careful with this. Like, some of these wide receivers are going to get that. Tyreek and Devontae got 3rd contracts. Like, you'll never get there, Deebo. I wonder if that's
I think one thing that works in his favor, because I heard somebody else say like Deebo had more rushing touchdowns outside of the 5-yard line than anybody in the league last year. And, running backs carry the ball 300 times. Deebo carried it under 60. But that's part of why it works. Like part of Deebo as a running back working is that Deebo doesn't carry the ball 20 times a game. I don't mean from a health standpoint. I mean,
and you're not slamming him at the goal line. You can put in other guys there, right? They put in Trey Sermon.
Yeah.
They could next year and Elijah Mitchell.
Part of why it works
hand it to use check there.
It's kind of a trick play. It's not a trick play, but it's a changeup. That's part of why it works, right?
It wasn't the last end of the season.
No. But I'm just saying, like your changeup, your fastball at 98 only works if you throw another pitch with it. Most guys can't just throw a 98 mile an hour fastball straight.
But I bet if Kyle was on right now and no one could see and this would never get out, he'd be like, I truly believe if Deebo was just our starting running back, he could rush for 1,500 yards.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he could. And the thing with Deebo is like, some guys, every once in a while, a guy throws a fastball hard enough with good enough location that he can just throw that pitch, and that's the equivalent of just give the ball to Deebo, however you can get it to him, and he's going to make a play.
But doesn't it feel like you could run normal plays, like true, consistent, like between the guard and stuff, and him just kind of feel it out? And
yes,
break and
yeah, but I do think I think his 6 yards per carry average probably goes down if he's your starting running back.
For sure. Yeah, yes, for sure.
I know you're not saying otherwise, but
he'd average 5'8". Butcher Box, baby.
For life. Butcherbox.com/ham. Go get it.
I actually made a little meat plate last night. I did
a meat plate.
Butcherbox. Butcherbox.com/ham. You sign up, 8 to 14 pounds. You get, can feed up to 26 people. No big deal. And I took some ground beef, but I took some veggies and I just put it in the, on the stove. Boom. And then I made some refried beans, just put it in the microwave, and I just kind of combined it all, basically like what you'd have in a burrito, and I just ate it out of a bowl. Really easy. Put a little ketchup
That's
on, Patrick Mahomes style, and it was you couldn't do that if you had children or a wife. They'd be like, I'm not eating this. But for me, it felt like I was eating Ruth Chris.
That's fantastic. Dan,
Easy.
my dad used to always just make. Is that what shepherd's pie is? Just mashed potatoes on top of ground beef?
I think
Is that what
I think
my dad used to make that all the time? And my
feels
dad,
like there's some peas in there, maybe carrots.
Dan Haberman loves him some ketchup too. So it was.
I love ketchup. Love it.
We're also brought to you by our friends at Indeed, John. Indeed.com/ham. Indeed.com/ham. If you are hiring, and a lot of people are trying to hire, find the best candidates at Indeed.com/ham. You get a $75 sponsored job credit when you upgrade your job post now before April 30th. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, you need Indeed.
Yep. Indeed.com/ham. Go get yourself an employee. I mean, come on, people. Go get yourself, improve your business, and add some company morale with a new individual in the building or on Zoom.
Quick fact. Oh, I'll get to that in a second. All right, let's get to two more teams. One, I cannot believe no one has brought this team up yet, but I'll get to them in a second. Next up,
Patriots.
That's right. But
Seriously?
you didn't give me $5, so Scott goes next. Deebo to Detroit for 32-34, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. 32, that's the last pick of the first round. 34, that's the second pick of the second round.
That's a good pick.
And Amon-Ra St. Brown. You want to do some draft value on that? 32 is worth 184 and 175.
My pushback on this would be from Detroit side. They are so far away from being a player away. It's not even funny. It makes no sense not to use those picks on just trying to find your own Deebo, right?
Yeah.
You're terrible.
Which you can at 32 and 34. You could take two receivers probably if you wanted to.
Yeah, to me, St. Brown, you like him. I mean, I think he was good for them last year. I would just use those picks on getting play. Their team's bad. Their team's really bad. To me, Deebo makes no sense for them specifically. They are too shitty.
Amon-Ra had 90 catches last year and 5 touchdowns. All right. Good question.
Was he a Trojan?
He is a USC Trojan.
Was he the jack guy? Like super jacked? Does that sound familiar?
You thinking Michael Pittman?
Yeah.
Colts?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think what he looks like. I can't put a visual to the player, but was he a good college player? I guess his team sucked, huh? So it's hard to.
Yeah, he was a good college player.
Yeah. So they had a receiving room at one point in time with him and Drake London. That's pretty good. He's not small. I mean, I can't even. I watch so little Detroit Lions football.
Okay. I don't, for the life of me, understand why people aren't throwing out New England Patriots trade possibilities. Because part of my thing is like, find a team who doesn't have a great quarterback. And New England's going to have to get a new quarterback in a few years when it comes time to fifth-year option Mac Jones. Kidding. So what about New England's first and New England's second? 21 and 54. That's what New England has. Would they trade 21 and 54? And would you send Deebo Samuel to the Patriots?
Well, if you're Deebo Samuel, why would you want to live there and not play here if the money was the same?
I don't, again, part of this is hard as we don't exactly know what the issue is, but time zone at least is the same, closer.
Yeah, see, to me, if I'm Deebo, I would refuse to sign a contract there. And it feels, if I'm just going to guesstimate on Deebo Samuel, he would refuse to sign a contract in New England. Why would he just stay here with Kyle? The place is miserable. Freezing cold.
Yeah, I don't know.
From a draft
Mac Jones
standpoint,
has
21-54.
Oh,
it would intrigue me.
21 is worth 261. You like how I'm doing this math by hand? Makes me feel good. And 104, that's 365, which is basically the 10th pick. So we're in the right range here with a lot of these.
I had someone in the NFL tell me that Deebo is worth more than the 10th pick. He's just too good.
I agree with that person in the NFL.
He was exceptional, like elite, like as good as it gets. It doesn't get any better. Like whatever greatness is, like dominating with a ball in your hand, he peaked. Like his high end is as high. I meant like
No,
You
I know
just
what you
can't get any
meant, but
better.
then I said, did he? Though,
Well,
is it
that's
possible
where you
that
have
he
to.
did?
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to get any better than that. It's just, can you maintain that for like 3 years?
I think it's hard.
I think it's borderline impossible.
Yeah,
Right?
but to me, again, like, he doesn't have. This is where I keep saying, or I go back to, he doesn't have to carry the ball 60 times to be a great player for you. I don't think. But
No,
when he does carry it, and the threat of him carrying it is what makes you a better team.
I think it was Deebo. Could have been Ayuk, but I'm pretty sure the bomb that Lance threw against the Texans, where he ran back across the field, was Deebo. Caught it.
Yeah.
It was Deebo.
Yeah.
Well, to me, that's an element that he did not exist with Jimmy, that you would just throw some bombs to number 19 and 11, right? So your offense would just be much more explosive down the field with those two guys, but specifically 19, where it's not, we're going to throw you deep, right? You will make the play when you catch the ball way down there, which I'm sure is something he wants to do.
There was two I wanted to show you here real quick. Oh, Brandon says, would the Jets be crazy to trade 3?
I don't think they would do that.
Jets have 4, Houston has 3, but with those two teams, feels like you can get a good pass rusher that high. Tobin, thank you, Tobin. Am I crazy for being confident that Deebo will be a Niner? I don't think you're crazy.
Crazy?
But I wouldn't be confident of anything at this point, necessarily. The one thing you would say with the Niners is they tend to hold. Hit that like button. I don't think they're in a place where they have. I
don't know. We've never really seen them in this scenario. It's a unique scenario. I think we're going to learn a lot just about.
You know what Deebo needs, John?
If a story comes out that Kyle went to meet him, if they just trade him, we're gonna do some learning with what their metal here.
You know what I would do? Get Deebo. If Deebo has a Zenny sponsorship in the next 6 months, then you know you're in good shape.
Well, here's the problem, guy. Is that to pay Kittle like a wide receiver, the Niners needed to double that guaranteed money. Zenny gave them all the extra money that they had, and they gave them ownership in the company. So you have to find another company. But right now, I don't know if you saw the stock market today, everything was plummeting. So, people are a little on their toes. Silicon Valley not just handing out as much money as they were. I'm not saying is any Silicon Valley company. I know they're kind of based around here, but to me, they're an eyewear company, not a tech company. But yeah, could you do kind of a Joe Lacob, Eddie DeBartolo, like all of a sudden Deebo's just on like the meta, they renamed Meta Deebo.
It hit me today, and this will be, I think, one of my themes on contract negotiations. There are some things that the NFL could learn from NIL in college football, where there's a separate party involved, not affiliated directly with the program, and the coach can't be involved, right? The coach can't tell the NIL collective that pays the player who to pay, but the NIL collective somehow knows who to pay. Like, they don't just go to 24/7 Sports and look at the rankings. Like, they know who the coach wants on the team and how to get that person paid. And, this is not new. I'm sure Eddie DeBartolo has a roadmap of how to do this somewhere. But sponsorship deals are ways to make sure players get paid, and teams have corporate relationships.
But here's the problem. Deebo's marketing guy would go, I can land him a deal. And he would get that deal at this point in time wherever. Like, that's the PJ Tour. That's the PJ Tour arguments. That like, I'm going to get my sponsorship no matter what. I don't need you.
The difference is your marketing guy gets you a deal based on what the company thinks you're worth.
Yeah.
The team gets you a deal based on how much that company needs to slush fund pay you.
Yeah.
Not based on how much you're worth.
Yeah. I can get you an extra $25 million.
Yeah. You're not worth it to them, but there's somehow all of a sudden they're the official there's some a trade deal on the back end. I don't know. Just,
you're saying if all of a sudden Deebo's the official Mercedes-Benz of Silicon Valley, something's up.
Yeah. Or like, whatever, pick a million companies.
But this is where I think, like, in the pros, like, Aaron Rodgers gets to make his money off the field no matter what, right?
No, I understand. Yeah, I understand. But Aaron is one of the most marketable.
Does anything is unique, for sure.
I'm saying, but Aaron is, if you said, all right, random company, pick 10 players in the NFL that are really famous that you'd pay. Like, Aaron would be, okay, Aaron.
Yeah, makes sense. I follow you.
Matthew Stafford, AT&T. I love Matthew Stafford as much as the next guy, but who in the AT&T boardroom was like, that's who we got to go get?
Was that a get whole move by Stan?
I don't know. That one to me, again, love Stafford, That one doesn't make sense, really, unless he's not being paid that much. But I bet he's being paid a lot.
I wonder what those ad campaigns pay.
A LaMelo Ball was in one. Was in that AT&T ad campaign.
Do you think it's a lump sum? Do you think it's a quarterly payment? Do you think it's like I'll give you $1 million?
The longer the campaign goes, the more you get paid. I don't want that. Like, I don't want lump sum and then the campaign's great and it goes on for 3 years and okay, do you want another trade I have that I think could be a crazy trade a week from now that no one's thinking about? I shouldn't say no one's thinking about. That's a dumb. Everyone always says that. No one's saying this. So I was listening to Michael Lombardi's podcast
with Rennie. And Zenny, who's his partner? Fenny?
Huh?
He's got a new partner. Fenny. Adnan left.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Lombardi's podcast.
Michael Lombardi, gotcha.
It's the 7th new host.
Well, maybe it's hard to work with. I don't know. Should get him on the show and ask him. And he just says a lot of stuff. And it's hard sometimes to tell, like, is he just throwing something out there that he just made up, or does he know something? So it's hard to filter through. But one thing he doesn't think, or he's talking like he doesn't think Kyler Murray wants to play for the Arizona Cardinals again. And to me, if you're Arizona, if you don't want to pay Kyler, which if you're Cliff, you'd want to pay Kyler because
unless they fractured a little over the last year.
So what about this one's hard. You got to find this one's tough. But I think Carolina, like, you got to think who is desperate to do something and who would pay a guy. Who would pay Kyler right now? I think Carolina would.
Yeah, they would.
So what about a Carolina Kyler trade? And I know we've talked, like, do Baker and Cliff even like each other? They could go to Baker if they had to, right? For a year, or get 2 ones and then draft a quarterback next year, right? Like, get 6 and next year's 1, or 6 and next year's 1 and Christian McCaffrey. Although I don't know if you're Carolina, if you would do that, you'd want Christian and Kyler together. I think that'd be kind of dangerous. Cliff gets 6 and next year's 1. And again, it's tough because Carolina doesn't have picks this year. So you'd be doing a lot of future picks, but like this year's 1, next year's 1, and a 2 and a 3 next year, something like that. So 2 1s, a 2 and a 3 for Kyler.
This is separate from Deebo.
Not Deebo related. Yeah.
Did you see that Patrick Peterson and the Edmonds, the former running back is on Steelers, kind of came out and supported Kyler a little bit, but things are weird. You have to remember when Baker transferred and left Texas Tech, he started as a true freshman and then he was not going to start anymore. So ultimately him and Cliff's relationship from a football standpoint ended when Cliff said, "You're not the starting quarterback anymore."
Yeah.
That's why he ended up at Oklahoma. That's
important.
Which is, to me, is not nothing. So yeah, he's a little desperate, but I guess my point is that I don't think Cliff, now this is a long time ago, but that Baker was some star. Like, one thing that can't be argued that
Baker would have to be a placeholder.
Yeah, that Cliff, but maybe their relationships mended fences. I would say that Baker, part of getting rid of Kyler, if you were selling quote unquote high / you didn't want to pay him and you could get 3 ones, right? You give us pick 6 and 2 more ones and a player or something. Well, ultimately I still need to find a quarterback. So even if Baker's like, I just found myself just where I kind of was.
Yeah,
I think spot. And I would also say that Baker has a little Kyler, like, is he just obsessed with himself? Kind of a weird cat. It'd be pretty risky.
The reason to do it would be because of what you're seeing happen with Baker. The reason would do it to be if you think you've concluded you don't want to give Kyler Murray what it takes to pay NFL quarterbacks. You don't think he's worth that, right? That would be the reason to do it. Maybe New Orleans would give you 2 ones. I know we talk like they've solved their quarterback issue, but
is it Kyler Murray? And listen, I'm not a Kyler Murray fan, and I would trade him. I would not pay him because just his going rate is his going rate, right? It's not like you get him like, can you get him for 26? Like, his rate's high. I would not do that, but I just don't know how you replace it. I also wonder.
But what I'm saying is you might be if you've concluded we have to replace him, it's going to happen because we're not going to pay him $45 million. So what are we going to do? Wait or do it now? Get next year's 1 from somebody as well as this year's 1. Draft the quarterback next year. Bring in Baker just for 1 year.
Could see it.
Could you? I don't know. Could Kyler get traded next Thursday? Could Jimmy get traded next Thursday? I think that'll be one of the things we talk about. One other thing that
the Panthers, I guess he's been too. Feels like Jimmy's been pretty bad against Arizona. They wouldn't want Jimmy, would they? Could you get rid of Kyler for Jimmy? Even if it was a placeholder?
No, I don't think you could. You'd have to do. I think Baker would make more sense for them.
Yeah, because you could sell it like they know each other, right?
And also, he's younger. Let's see if we can fix him. It's cheaper too.
They're in a. I mean, is Kyler not going to be there at all offseason? Feels that way, doesn't it?
Well, that was kind of Lombardi's point. Is he thinks Kyler's just actually like could hold out,
and he's rich, so it's not like he's like, screw you, I got cash. Do you have to reimburse the A's? I think he did, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't think you get to keep that money, do you?
No, the signing bonus.
Saints first and Michael Thomas for Deebo.
Michael Thomas kind of pain in the ass. I would say no.
And been hurt.
Yeah, I mean, the Niners have Michael Thomas. His name's Juwan Jennings, who just signed his contract yesterday, a couple days ago. I saw on the world. And like little 1-year tender. You make fun of the 1-year tender, but if you've been like a 7th-round pick making $800,000, then you get the 1-year tender at 1.5. You're like,
you're on your way, baby. You are on your way.
Shit. And then he's like, you just went into the highest bracket now in California.
Patrick says Davis Mills was the second best rookie QB behind Mac Jones, who made the Pro Bowl. I mean, he threw for more yards than Mac. Some people would argue he was the best rookie QB last year. I think, put it this way, would the Patriots be better with Davis Mills than Mac Jones?
I don't know if I can say that.
Well,
Mac Jones was playing in real games. Davis Mills was playing in games. It didn't matter.
I do think, though, if you're going to have a quarterback who's not great, like he's not a top 10 quarterback, there's a big difference. Would you say Derek Carr is a top 10 quarterback?
No.
But what he has is what most guys who are 11 to 25 don't have, which is top 10 skills.
Yeah.
And that's Davis Mills has that, and Mac Jones does not.
Well, I would say the difference, I'd just put him, Cousins, and Dak kind of all in that crew. They can have moments where you just don't do it consistently enough. When you just watch Herbert and those guys play every week. I would say the one thing with Mac Jones and Davis Mills, Mac was much more equipped, probably the most equipped since like Luck, to start on a team that was trying to make the playoffs and function week in, week out.
Yeah.
But in 3 years, Davis Mills might be a better player. Like, because Mac was more equipped. He had been playing in the big leagues, right? With all the lights and the big boy coaching him. He was, and that's that. But everyone acknowledged that. No one disputed, like, Mac could have just had Jimmy Garoppolo's year. But that's not what you look for with the 3rd or 2nd or 1st overall pick. The difference, I think the Texans would tell you, one, they didn't have any picks last year. But, like, if this guy is our starting quarterback for the next 8 years and just can become Kirk Cousins, that's a hell of a pick, right? If you could find your Dak Prescott, your Russell, I mean, Russell's the highest end, but even Dak, part of Dak's story is if you do take the $160 million and factor it over the life of his career, you're like, well, if you factor it those first 4 years when he was cheap, it's actually a pretty good deal, right?
Yeah. I think part of it is like, they might be looking at it like the 15th pick for a quarterback for 4 years or 5 years, right? And then we just move on. Is worth it. They could view it that way. Like, he's not worth the second contract, but that's okay. We just got a quarterback on a rookie deal for 5 years. And then in 5 years, we'll get another quarterback.
But you know what I try to do sometimes, because I think that's an easy thing to say and very fair. It'd be like, what's going to happen to us in 2 years or 3 years? What about just living in the present? Like, you can get us and we'll figure it out as we go, right? We don't have to pay them.
Yeah. Okay. Let me say it a different way. A different way to say it is, I don't need to worry about whether or not I want this guy 6 years from now when I draft him. Whereas, like, the Niners can't think like that necessarily with Trey Lance.
Well, and the Cardinals can't think like that when they took Kyler Murray, right? He was going to be their star quarterback and pay a ton of money.
Right. And part of that is just, who are you and what have you earned? And he's Bill Belichick, and he's earned a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
So now, can he win a Super Bowl? Now, he's also got a Super Bowl standard. Can he win a Super Bowl with Mac? Like, that's where you go, well, are you even going to wait 5 years? Well,
but I'll tell you this. I thought
this is the best guy we can get right now, and he's cheap.
I thought last year was really impressive. If Belichick can take a playoff spot again this year with how good the AFC is, it would be even more impressive than what he did last year, right? If the Patriots are one of the wild card teams,
right?
But I'm just
Him?
saying that too. But I'm just saying, like,
Right.
that means he's in the playoffs again in the Chargers or the Browns or the Raiders or not. Like, and he's doing it with Mac fucking Jones. To me, he can keep upping his legacy, just making the playoffs with these teams. Like, damn, he didn't even have a top 12 quarterback. He's making the playoffs.
I know, but that's like subtle legacy stuff. The real legacy stuff is winning championships.
But he's already won 6.
No, yeah. Nate says, what about Texans trade a first and Brandon Cooks for Deebo?
I
don't
heard Brandon
think I would
Cooks,
do that.
he's a high character, good guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. Would you do that?
No. Brandon Cooks is a pretty good player, though.
He had 90 catches last year on the Houston Texans.
Don't love the redundancy of Cooks and Ayuk feel a little similar to me. I like having a yin and yang. Like I like having like a, a speed guy and a big guy. A big guy and a possession guy.
Cooks also makes sense for Houston because Davis Mills has a big arm.
Just extended him. They like him.
We think in 3 weeks. Jackson says, "Are we thinking 3 weeks of content from this story?" I got to be honest. We're thinking bigger. We're thinking this week. We're thinking last week. We're thinking next week. That's 3. We're thinking don't trade him, but he no shows OTAs. So there's how many weeks is that?
Well, I mean, Kyle's talking once a week, so he's giving questions on Deebo.
Yeah.
Or
although
they do trade him, and we get a Chris Olave to talk about every week.
That's true. But technically you could argue that's a different topic.
But it's all connected, and it would carry you. Like
It
Chris
is.
Olave or Garrett
family.
Wilson or Drake London do not exist with Deebo on this team.
Worst case scenario, they keep Deebo. He gets hurt week 1.
By far.
2 years of content. Yeah, I don't want like a Le'Veon holdout. I don't want that. That's not
do a week or two a holdout.
Well, no, yeah. I just saying like a whole year of like, oh, bum, 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 bum. That's a letdown.
Yeah.
But great question. That is the number one way I think of stories is how much content is there here. And well,
there would have been nothing without this. So thank God. This is to me the worst draft on paper in a long, long time. And obviously the Niners don't have picks. Hell, most good teams don't. I mean, have the league trade all their picks. I mean, one franchise literally has their motto, fuck them picks. That's their motto.
The GM wears a t-shirt.
He's not even kidding, though. It's not even like, it's not sarcastic. It's not tongue-in-cheek. It's like literally their company motto, right? They do not, and they haven't had a first-round pick in 9 years. And they I don't even think they thought twice. I thought they were insane. They're like, oh, second, third. Yeah, give us Von Miller. What's going to stop them from doing that again next year? Don't you think they'll trade, if they're in the mix, their second-round pick for whoever that's on the block come the trade deadline?
I need a list of all the players drafted with picks that the Rams traded. I have a feeling it's not a Pro Bowl team.
I went on our former producer and buddy, Greg Papa's son, Derek Papa's podcast.
Derek Papa, today. I saw that.
And he said Buzz in L.A., I don't exactly know how this works. You have to like ask Parag or something, like after June 1, that the Rams, there's a lot of buzz about them signing the Honey Badger like after June 1.
To avoid so they don't have to give up.
Yeah, so all of a sudden the Rams are going to end the offseason with Allen Robinson,
there's no comp picks.
Bobby Wagner.
That's the deal, right?
Honey Badger, it's like,
but you don't really.
Yeah, I don't exactly know the deal, but
show name War Daddies.
Too much respect for fallen warriors over the years. As a guy that avoided, mandatory in Israel, and another guy who's the first family member of the Middlekauffs or the Lears to not be in the military.
I am also I have double whammy. Also the first not to.
So you avoided and you're the first. Yeah, it's just it's one of the. Sometimes I think about. Again, what
am I giving to the world?
Yeah, but I would, in fairness, I would have been a terrible, terrible soldier. Like it just wouldn't have been my thing. But it was something
there's other jobs
at the base and stuff. But if you're gonna do it,
no, they give everybody. They give all kinds of jobs.
It's true, but I'm just saying. I have my grandpa was shot down in Japan. Another, my dad's brother was killed in Vietnam. It was a huge point of pride.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a point of contention, like my dad.
I have a lot of pride in my family's service.
For sure. I mean, I pound my chest, and then I realized, like, what did I actually do? The answer is nothing. But you literally, a lot of people fall under
Draft dodge is that what you're calling me?
But it's mandatory, right? There's no draft dodging.
If you live in Israel, it's
But you were
mandatory.
born there.
I don't.
You were born there.
Yeah, but you have to live there. I didn't live there. I was born there. I left. I was 3 months old. Then we visited one time in like 1998, and when we came back again to visit several years later, it was like several visits later they caught it. There was no record of me leaving the country, so they thought I'd been living in the country for like, 98, maybe it was like 2012. They thought I'd been living in the country for like 14 years, 12 years, whatever it was. And it just wasn't true. I hadn't been. But I had to go like, hey, I haven't been here, file an appeal.
They didn't go like, here's your boots and here's your weapon?
No, there was just a thing. When I came into the country, they're like, you can't leave the country with your family in 2 weeks until you go clear up this issue, because it says that you actually live here. So I had to go. I had to go to the base, go in. They wouldn't let my mom in with me. I don't speak very good Hebrew. They're not all that interested in speaking English. And it was I never thought I'm not getting out of here, but you sit in a waiting room by yourself, and mom's on the other side of the barbed wire fence for 2 hours while you just sit there. Like, you just start thinking, like, crazier things have happened.
Yeah, what's my move? Hand-to-hand combat.
You just walk in like, what size boots are you? You're like, oh shit.
Yeah, do I need to learn how to use nunchucks if my gun backfires? Like, what do I need to do? What do I need to do?
I mean, my eyesight's not good enough to be a pilot.
Top Gun pilot. Yeah, I don't have the eyesight, and just probably not smart enough. You also got to have some balls, right? I mean, to be a pilot, like,
yeah, it's critical part of service. It's why we respect the service people so much. And
have you seen the trailer for the new Top Gun?
Yeah, like 3 years ago I saw it. Is it back?
They had to delay it.
Yeah.
When I was at the Super Bowl, Miles Teller and those guys were doing the rounds. I mean, it was about to come out, and then obviously it gets pushed back. But it's like,
why did it get pushed back again?
I don't know. But feels like a pretty big stretch, though. I will watch. Because like,
I will 100% watch.
Tom now is the instructor,
Yeah. No, I'm totally watching. Is it in theaters, or what's it going to be? Coming out this summer.
To me, that would be one of those that, like, if you charge me $19.99, I would.
Airplanes on the big screen is like, I need aerial fights on the big screen. I'll do that.
When's the last time you've been to the theater?
I don't know. I'd have to really think about that.
For me, it's been probably 4 years, 5 years. It was the Brad Pitt.
It hasn't been. The which one?
The Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think, is the last time I went to a movie.
Oh, great movie. One of my favorites. It's been more recent for me. Maybe a Star Wars movie or something. I don't quite remember.
Iceman.
Goose.
Goose is kind of making a comeback. He was in. Did you ever see Inventing Anna or whatever?
No, was that show? I mean, I've heard about it.
Yeah, he's in that show. He's in the WeWork Apple TV. He's
wait. I just watched episode 1. Which one is he? Is he
not
in it yet? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't think he becomes like one of the VC guys that invests
in
the company.
I just started watching the show. Or is that what it's called? WeWork, or is it called Fallen or something?
Yeah, but, whatever. With Leto, with Jared Leto, right?
I didn't realize he's Israeli. He's supposed to be an Israeli guy in the whole thing.
Yeah, he's this crazy guy.
He's fantastic. I didn't know he was Israeli this whole time. Makes sense.
Yeah, he's not just some like white tech guy. I thought Jared Leto was an elite character. Like, that's.
I've only watched one episode. I love the show.
Oh, it's fantastic. He makes the show, right? And it makes you think, like, if this guy is really like this,
we crashed.
Yeah. Brian Hawkins told me that Hulu had a documentary with the two actual people, so like Leto's actual character and his wife, and like it just makes you realize like these people are batshit crazy. Like, I started watching a little bit of Hulu did one on the Theranos chick. And you're watching it, you realize she's a little nuts too. But I knew more about her than I did the Leto character of We Crash or We Work.
I don't really know much about.
We were talking about it the other night.
Elizabeth Holmes podcast.
It's Workday. I thought We Work was in Walnut Creek. It's actually Workday. I see Workday a lot. I don't even know what Workday is, but I think I got those two mixed.
They're one of the companies that dropped Phil Mickelson.
Good point. Yeah, they feel like a office type space place, but maybe not.
Anne Hathaway is truly great as an awful person.
She's elite at it.
She's very good at that. All right. The Dropout. I don't think The Dropout, the name of the podcast is something, it came out a couple of years ago, or maybe less than that, is also, it's a good, 10 episode pod. Sour Blood or something like that. I can't remember.
If she could have pulled it off, it would have been like one of the great all-time deals, right? If you just a little blood to find out if you have.
The only thing she was missing was like a test that worked, like it actually working.
She just lied, right?
Yeah, just the thing never worked. I remember from the podcast, one of the things was early on at Stanford, she said she had figured this out. And one of the professors at Stanford was like, kind of from the very beginning, called bullshit on her, like blew the whistle, like this chick is full of shit. Like there is no way this works. But people
wanted it to be true. When people want things to be true, there is no shutting it down until everyone acknowledges that it's not true. Then you go to jail, right?
Yeah,
because part of her deal, right, was she was getting so much funding based on it being true. Was she running a scam? Like, was she just pocketing the money? Like, or was it just that she lied about it working? I've heard people say that she's actually closer to not breaking rules.
They put machines in Walgreens.
Yeah, she was not running like a full-on Enron. Like she had a tangible product.
She had it just didn't do what they said it did.
So in the Walgreens, if I put my finger on it to get a little,
I don't quite remember exactly how it played out when I went to Walgreens and I got the results of this test. That was bullshit, but they had sold them to Walgreens.
Have you seen any pictures of her like going into court holding hands like her boyfriend? I wonder if that boyfriend is like the reverse of like, a gold digger, but he, as a guy, and he thinks that one day she's going to be worth a lot of money. So he's getting in the low time, like buying low as a stock and then hoping like, if she just makes it through, she's so talented, she'll be worth so much money. And then I'm in the the clear.
Even a little jail time, the Martha Stewart bounce back,
Yeah. Who the hell is going to hold her hand right now?
I'm worth so much. Jordan says, I work for Athelis, and we just developed and got FDA clearance for a similar product as Theranos.
Do you guys have a ticker symbol? If that's inside information, can I invest in the company? Because I need some investments that'll actually go up right now.
Athelis. Alcoa.
Is a ticker?
I don't see a ticker here.
If it's not public, can I invest? Will you take $7,800.24? That's the amount of money I can give you.
Will you take Buck Mason? How many T-shirts can we give you? Private.
Will you take my UGG slippers?
All right. I don't know, John. Should what we just did here, which we intended to be YouTube only, turn into a podcast later?
My gut would say no, but okay.
I just thought it was really meaty content, but his gut says no, so we'll see what happens.
But I could be, I don't know. It's just my gut. Just part of it. But the other thing is people go back and the one thing about podcasts, I was looking the other day at our numbers on like Grade Papa. It was like 20% higher 2 weeks later. People go back and listen at different times. I think sometimes I think about podcasts different than the consumer does. They'll just listen to it when they're ready.
Well, until we decide, you can just share this link with everybody you know and hate.
Yeah.
The duo is out. That's me saying goodbye.
Peace.